I'd like to begin just by introducing the guest today, and this is Nadi Tawakkol, and he graduated from EMU many years ago. I can't remember exactly when.
I think 2012 or 11, one of those two.
2012. Yeah, showing my age a little bit and showing yours, I mean, a little less, but
No, no, that's okay.
yeah. So Nadi was a student in my Bio 306 class many moons ago, and so it's great to catch up. So I guess, and Nadi is practicing dentistry in the Seattle, Washington area now. So he's going to tell us about lots of things about that. And so I guess the first question is, would you please just briefly introduce yourself? I know I just kind of did that. Describe your background at EMU, and that, might include your major, why you chose it,
Yep.
when you graduated, that sort of thing. You just told us you graduated in 2012.
Yeah, so my name is Nadi Tawakkol. I'm pretty sure I graduated in 2011, 2012. I was a biology major, and the reasoning behind that was more so just, oh, I'm going into, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. So I was thinking, if I'm a biology major, that's going to better prepare me and better suit slash show potential kind of colleges that I'm capable or able to kind of do a heavier load of a science-based. And so I did a biology major and then I minored in psychology just more so because I was actually it was an interesting subject for me that I wanted to grow in. And then I was in honors college and yeah, graduated in 2000, let's just say 11 and 12, who knows? But yeah,
Sometime in there,
sometime in that time
yes,
frame,
over a decade ago. Cool.
which I believe that's when you were starting.
Yeah, so I started in 2006. So you were one of my you were in my early group, and I apologize
Okay.
for everything that I did. Yeah, it's been a journey for me too. Um, all right, cool. So, can you tell us about your current position? So what do you do? And
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your job and your career path.
Yeah, so I graduated dental school in 2017. I went to University of Michigan, and when you graduate as a dentist, you think you know it all, and then you quickly realize how little you truly know. And I worked as an associate. So an associate just means I was an employee of a practice in Ann Arbor with actually my dentist growing up. And I worked there for about 2 years. And you kind of get your feet wet. You realize, and everyone that you meet tells you it takes a couple years to get good at what you're doing. They'd say 4 to 5 years. And yeah, I worked for 2 years and small things that now I look back felt daunting and were overwhelming. After 2 years, I decided let's just switch it up a little bit. I had been in Michigan since 2005, 2006, and so I just needed a change of life. And in 2019, I decided to kind of visit the greater Seattle area. Really liked it. I have two friends who live here. And then I made the jump. And so when I moved here, I was also an associate for 4 years. Great practice. I learned a lot of, finding good mentors is helpful. And I think that's something that we'll bring up in today's interview is finding a good mentor to help either guide you or educate you. But he was a good mentor who taught me how to do things right and a standard to set for myself. And then about 2 years ago, I decided to take the plunge and purchased a practice from a retiring dentist in the area. And it's been about 2 years now. So I'm a practice owner in Renton, which is South Seattle. And so then that takes a whole, if I could go back in time, I think business would be a good thing to implement as a either a major or a minor because there's a lot on the business side that I am letting it letting it slowly improve. But yeah, and so yeah, that's kind of my path right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like there's a lot of things to consider, and I mean, absolutely, mentors are can be so helpful. I've had some
Mhm.
great ones in my life that have helped me so much too. So it's good that you've had that kind of mentorship. And yeah, that's great advice about the this business thing that probably kind of blindsided you a bit. So what's the what are some things that you like best about your job?
Dentistry is, I think most healthcare has pros and cons to it. My favorite thing, honestly, about being a dentist is the relationships. You tend to see a lot of patients. You have to have, in my opinion, good bedside manner. and being able to connect. Because most people who are there, it's a very vulnerable position. If you think about it, you're laying in a chair, open, and a lot of people are there either because they're in pain or just because they have work to do that they don't really believe needs to be done or wants to be done. So you have to learn how to build trust between you and the patient, but also developing their relationship. And I'll be honest, for me, it's when you walk in a room and they're like excited to see you and like will actually talk to you versus kind of closing off. Now, that doesn't always happen, but the ability to one, improve, yes, improve their health, but also improve what they perceive as is going to happen, but then also delivering good work. Because ultimately what you're doing is a stamp of your work. It's your trademark. What you're doing in there should last 10, 15 years. And then you want it to be functional, but also attractive. And so, yeah, I think you have that balance of, there's the healthcare aspect, and then there's also the artistry aspect of it, which I think is nice, which you hear about, but then when you're actually doing it, you realize I've seen some work where I'm like, it wasn't the best work, but then you've seen other work where you're like, wow, you
Mm.
just sit there looking at someone's work, and you're like, that's a good looking too, and then you move on.
Yeah, dentistry is so important. I mean, it's so important for people's health, oral hygiene and
Hmm.
just the care of your mouth. So many things are connected to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're doing important work. Um, so it sounds like you kind of answered this question, but what is something you didn't know about your job or career path that you wish you would have known before pursuing it?
I think the biggest shock for me personally, obviously everyone's going to view things differently, um, was more so running the business side of it. There's a lot of people management, and when you're an associate, everyone loves you because you're not paying, you're just there, you're just another employee. But then when you become the owner, things change. There's things that you have to factor in people's lives. You are impacting that person, your employee's life. And so uh, working with staff together, understanding insurances, understanding how to be profitable, what things need to happen, how do you collect payments, and as much as you shadow, and as I tried watching it as an associate, but you have limited time when you're working, and the people who you're asking for are also busy. But I think an important thing is if you ever go to dentistry, taking the time to actually just, if you have an opening in your schedule or if something's slow going on, take the time to learn about the business side and how they input checks and what they look for to pre-authorize treatment. Those are things that I never worried about. And thankfully, in my current office, I have a front desk who is phenomenal. And so I can trust her and she knows what she's doing. So I'm in a good position, but you never know what you're going to get into. If she leaves, then what happens? So
Mm.
it's about, treating people well, but also understanding it as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I'm wondering if you have like a typical workday, and if so, what might that look like?
So I have two hygienists, and so they have their own. So every hour they see a cleaning or a deep cleaning or a prophy. And so in that hour they'll do X-rays, and then I have to do an exam within that hour. And usually my exams are a little bit longer because I'll chit chat with them, with the patients. But every hour you have to do two exams. And then on my column, you'll have whether it's fillings. I do more kind of bread and butter dentistry. So I do a lot of fillings, crowns, and extractions, and then removable devices. So if they need a denture or partial denture. And so it's really just some practices are busier where it's like more you have to be on rollerblades and skating around the rooms and in and out. But the way I want my practice to run is to be a bit more personable. So yeah, you have your block on your side for your appointments, and then you just jump over, do your exams, figure out what needs to be done. You go back. It's just kind of a back and forth yo-yo. And then sometimes we'll have emergencies. And so if someone calls in for emergency, we usually try and get them in because if it's a broken tooth or they're in pain, at least we can get them started on antibiotics or get them the paperwork for the specialist they need. But, my days usually I get to the office like 7:40. We start at 8 and then we're done at 5 and I usually leave around 6:20.
Long
So,
days. Long days.
well, mostly because I don't do my notes until the end of the day and then I need a little bit of downtime where I just watch some YouTube and then relax. So,
Well, you'll be able to watch this on YouTube, so you
there
can.
you go. Definitely gonna like this one. Leave a comment maybe.
Awesome. And do you work all weekdays, or do you have like a? I know some dentists have a day off that they take.
We're recording this on a Friday. So Fridays are my day off. I do once a Friday, I do help out at a school in the area, and it's like a hygiene school, sorry, a dental assisting school. And then some other Fridays, I actually work with an old employee, an old boss, and she opens her own practice. So, but for the most part, 4 days a week, um, which growing up was the norm. It is changing a little bit, but still, I think most dentists have Fridays off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, you could take Mondays off and then you could catch all the Friday folks, right?
Yeah, you could, yeah, and yep, you could do that as well. Yep. Honestly, that's a good plan.
So thinking about like the path that led you where you are, what can you tell us about the path that led you to your current position? So, for example, like aside from your undergraduate degree, what sort of additional types of education and training
Oh,
did you have after graduating, and were there other experiences that prepared you for your career or your current position?
yeah. Um, if I could go back in time, I'm sure things would be done differently, and I would have listened to my mother a little bit better. But ultimately, so when I graduated, you have to take it's called the DAT. It's a the MCAT, LSAT, GRE. It's just an exam geared more towards dentistry. And so in my senior year, I had taken the exam and I did not score well. So I had applied, did not get any interviews. I had a good classmate. His name was Kareem. And then Kareem, he got in. So he went to Ohio State. And I will say for any listeners at Eastern, for any listeners at Eastern, I had a lot of classmates who all went in and have become successful healthcare professionals, whether it's optometry, but I mean, I can think of like Asani, Kareem, Omar. I had so many friends who became dentists, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, later, but it's, work hard because wherever you go does matter, but how you do things matters as well. And I learned that because so I didn't get in. And so then I have to figure out, okay, I have a biology major, which does limit in some scope of what you can do outside of the real world. And that's something that I learned as well. But I had a biology major and I was committed for dentistry. So that was the end goal. I knew I was going to make it work. And so what I decided to do was I had a friend who worked in a research lab in Michigan. And so he helped put me in connection. And so then I started working as a lab tech at one of the labs. And a lot of schools really appreciate or showing that you're able to, one, work in a collaborative team, but also that you're expanding your horizons. And so I worked as a lab tech for a year. And in that year, I also was studying for the DAT a lot more diligently, and I just took the time to do it. And so I think after about 4 months of studying, took the DAT, and then I scored really well. But then you have to wait another cycle. And you never really know. But I was confident with my score. And so I worked in research for a year. And then I decided to apply for I think it was a biomedical master's through Wayne State. And there's a lot of options at different schools. I just applied to the one on Wayne State. And so I started that for a semester. And then in that semester, I got accepted to dental school. So I didn't finish off the master's. But I will say that avenue of if your GPA isn't great, or if you're not scoring well in the DAT, you have to how can I set myself apart? Then you have to consider doing a master's. And the biomedical master's, I think, is a really good gateway because it is vigorous. You have to do a thesis, and you're surrounded by everyone who's kind of pushing you to do well. And I think that was kind of my avenue. But for me, I think it was the research helped a lot because Michigan is a really research heavy school, and I think they appreciate seeing that. Some schools don't value research as much, and you have to know where you're applying a little bit. But then, yeah, the master's, if I hadn't gotten out, I've completed the master's and then applied to dental school.
Yeah, I mean, I think the research, it probably won't hurt you unless it's taking you away from, being able to do well in your classes or it's,
Correct.
killing your DAT or whatever. But
Yeah.
it sounds like was a good experience. And I also, really appreciate that you shared how, it didn't work out for you
Yeah.
initially and you didn't quit, right? You went after it and you kept going and look,
Mhm.
you made it.
Yeah, I made it.
It's great. So thinking sort of longer term,
Yep.
what are your sort of longer term career and life goals?
The beauty about that, so I've been practicing now, oh my goodness, is it like 8 years? Yeah, 8 years. And I would say it took about 5 years to get that comfort that everyone would talk about when I was in dental school, where you just walk in a room and you know what you're doing, you know how to prep it. The hand skills are connected with the mind, everything is more fluid. And like I said, when you graduate, there's a lot to learn. And I think the beauty of dentistry is you can you can add to your repertoire as you wish. And so you have things such as implants that you can start looking into. You can do just more cosmetic cases if that's something that, if your hand skills are beautiful and you really enjoy just that, working on people who have, who might think their teeth don't look great, but they look fine, but they want more cosmetic appearances. You can do the cosmetic route. And I think that in itself is rather appealing because you don't get there's no stagnation in your career path. Now, obviously, you want to make sure you're doing good work, and that's my issue as a clinician. I'm just too hesitant. So I've taken implant courses and I've taken some full mouth reconstruction courses. There's a lot, and you know the due diligence to do that work on a patient is important. But everyone's different in how they want to approach things. But to me, that's kind of the next chapter is figuring out how I want to better my patient population, realizing what they need, and then diversifying my work to be able to offer that as a better. But I think that's a cool thing is you can pick a choice, you can be a general dentist, and then from there you can meander and pick a path that you like. And so that to me is the beauty of dentistry, which is really cool.
Yeah. And Rome wasn't built in a day, so
It's true.
sounds like you're thinking about adding some pretty complicated stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I'd like to.
you gotta take it a little bit at a time. You'll get there. So thinking back at your time at EMU,
Yeah,
what classes or types of classes were most useful to you in terms of preparing you for your current pursuit or kind of helping you
yeah.
figure out your way or just being useful as a student?
I'll say this first because that genetics class that Dr. Lehman taught, that was that was an intense class. Yeah, that was my first kind of experience into the intensity because we had to do those lab reports. They weren't just like a easy copy paste. We had to it was like electrophoresis. Like, there was so much we had to do that I was like, what on earth are we doing? And I remember that class like opened my eyes. I was like, oh my goodness. And he was a young gun back then, guys. So he was a hot shot and you were just treading lightly around him. But he also had a lab and I didn't know that. I genuinely had no idea. Um, and that could just be in my part. I just didn't pay attention. And that's why I'm saying if there is a faculty right now who has a lab and you would like to work with them, reach out because that to me would just set you up and it would give you a lot of insight to what potentials exist and a lot of the faculty there like I look back and I remember Dr. Walker, Dr. Eisenbach, uh, Dr. I think it was Lisa Bank.
Hmm.
There was so many faculty there who genuinely like they cared for you and they actually if you reached out they you knew that they would help you and those are some faculty I remember that I was like oh they I could rely on and that was really helpful for me. Um, in terms of classes, yeah, I remember like the genetics class. I remember plant biology. I forgot what Dr. Walker taught, but that was a great class
Probably
as well.
cell molecular, or
I think maybe it was something like I think
cell biology maybe class.
it was a 400 level class that I
Okay.
remember. It was like near the end of the year, but you end up seeing a lot of the same classmates in these classes. And I can remember having a good collaborative community with each other. You could rely on each other to answer your questions, to have feedback. And I look back and I look back fondly. There's classmates that I'll never forget. There's teachers I'll never forget. But I think the biggest recommendation is you have to go that extra bit. You have to be willing to either A, ask for the help, join the pre community, whether it's pre-med, pre-dent, join it and work together because it is a competitive field now more so than it was when I even went in. And the especially I think now the new building is done because when I was there they were constructing it. And so now you have more opportunities for that research because you need to set yourself up differently from other people. But yeah, I think for me it was just the fostering of a good community from the staff, from the faculty up to your classmates. And so you have the ability to succeed. It's just making sure you go that extra bit to do it.
Definitely. Definitely. Are there certain types of classes that you would recommend that somebody who's thinking about going into dentistry might want to
Oh,
focus on?
there's like I said, if I could go back in time, I think I would do a business major
Hmm.
and biology minor. And I say that just because for a lot of these colleges and universities, when you apply to, they're just prerequisites that you have to successfully accomplish. And that's all they need. You don't have to go above that. If you can do well in those classes, so you can focus on something that you think might better suit your profession after. And for me in dentistry, it was, I would say, business. If you're in medicine, it might be psychology, just to better understand the stresses people are going through. You can do statistics. It doesn't really matter. Um, I think all the classes that I took though were helpful. When you're in dental school and in med school, it's just a lot of information. And so, there might be some microbiology that will prepare you a little bit, but when you're in there, a lot of the stuff you're learning is new. It's more geared towards your profession. So I think just picking a major that you're comfortable with, knowing that you have to just do well in the prerequisites is important because I thought I had to do biology. I thought I'm going into something in healthcare, it has to be biology. But when I realized when I was in dental school, I would say I was one of the few that was a biology major. Everyone else did something different. Philosophy, this, animal study, you name it. It was all over the place. And it's just focus well on the examination and on your grades and the prerequisites, and you can that's all you need.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess that's kind of most of the questions that I have. Are there any other questions that you'd like to be asked that I missed?
Like I said, looking back, I didn't have the easiest path there. That's from my own doing in part of just being too stubborn and not taking it seriously enough. And like I said, I mean, Dr. Lehman did a PhD. And that to me, when I was doing research, you realize those who are doing PhD, they're in their own world. They are problem solving and figuring out issues that are unknown. When you're doing not a PhD, you have that ability to ask. You have that ability to reach out. And I think if I could go back, it was just more so don't be too stubborn. You know, there's resources out there for you, and it's not about me against them. And I look back and a lot of my classmates who made it, I look back and yeah, they were great people and they would help me in a heartbeat. And so just know, and that was the beauty of Eastern's community for me. Yes, there's, bigger colleges and they might have maybe some certain resources here and there that might seem better, but ultimately the people that you see who go to that colleges, they're again from all over. And if you reach out and show that you're able to work and make the effort, you can kind of make it happen. So that's my biggest advice. I didn't make it the first time. It took a while and I had I think like a stressful year of just like, what am I going to do? What am I doing with my life? I have a BS. What can be done with that? And then it's what made me, it's what motivated me. But
Yeah, well, that'll make it real for sure.
I
And
know.
it sounds like you took that lesson to heart and you
Yeah,
went with it. So that's great. Well, definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule
of course.
to
My
talk
busy Friday.
and to share. And yeah, I mean, this is the most valuable day of the week. So, yeah, well, thanks again.
Of course.